OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, it's 7:30. It's Tuesday morning, and if you're waking up a Liverpool fan this morning, you're a little bit anxious, right? Because, 4 points behind Manchester City after 2 games. Is the season over, Owen? That's the serious question. It's not as ridiculous a question as it seems. It's not. You're saying it's ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. 4-point lead. You're just handily giving the greatest, most expensively assembled selection of footballers ever, with one of the greatest managers ever, and like a youth system that is like belching out players worth 15 to 20 million quid. You're giving them a handy 4-point lead at the start of the season. You're handicapping yourself straight away.
You are. Of course you're handicapping yourself straight away. Manchester City have gone in to become raging hot favourites after the first couple of weeks of the season. That's what's changed. I just think that we fell into this trap last season, maybe a little bit later in the season than this, after things had kind of developed, where we thought that Liverpool hadn't a prayer against Manchester City, and since then Manchester City have strengthened, and maybe you can make the case that since Sadio Mane has left, Liverpool have weakened. Time will tell. Will it be a net gain or a net loss? Mane out, Darwin Núñez in. I know that there are other attackers in the squad from last year, but that's essentially what it might boil down to when you're comparing last season's attack to this season's attack. Time will tell. I'm not buying this thing being over just yet because of what happened last year. At the start of last season, the prediction was that City would run away with the title and Chelsea could possibly be their nearest challenger. That didn't materialise. And even around Christmas we were saying Liverpool are dead. And yet we had a final day showdown that was brilliantly dramatic. And as long as Jurgen Klopp is in that dressing room, I'm not writing Liverpool out of the fight.
Okay. Is there a possibility, though, that this year is like a down year for Liverpool the way 2 seasons ago was? And everybody's going to go, they had injury crisis at centre back, and that was the only thing that happened. And also, it's kind of the COVID issue is real. But like, they had most of their available players when Villa spanked them the previous season. Most of their best players were available. I think Alisson might have been missing, but certainly
it was before Van Dijk's injury.
Virgil was playing there, yeah. So they'd already started that season a little bit lacklustre, and they're conceding goals first. Is it 7 or 8 games in a row they've conceded first? I don't know. I'm just concerned here. I'm hoping that we were going to have a league title race, that these two great teams would continue to push each other the way they did last season at the end. But I just think that Manchester City have invested really, 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 really well. And like, Liverpool are still hoping that some of those kids are coming through and going to have an impact and be able to play at Premier League level when if there's an injury for City, what they're doing is they're putting in a 60 million quid player.
To a degree, yeah. Like, it's only if Manchester City get a pile up of injuries, that's when they have to start looking at players who are unproven. They can sustain a handful of injuries to their first team squad and they will be fine. But Pep does like to operate with a relatively tight-knit squad. He doesn't have top-class players coming out of his earballs. Like, this is not a situation that he's in. He deliberately crafts this, that he has a relatively tight squad, and the World Cup will become a factor. And yes, I know their brand shiny new signing
It's
won't
the
be
same
going.
for both of them, right?
It is. Like, Salah's not going either, so that probably cancels each other out. I guess my point is that we just don't know what's going to happen, and I do think the fitness thing is always going to be a factor in the story of a season, because when Liverpool got all those injuries a couple of seasons ago, that was hugely significant. Sure, they wouldn't have won the title anyway. They would have struggled to get top 2 anyway, even if they had everybody fit, given the malaise that was going on that season. So maybe that's just what happens this year. But it's not unthinkable to suggest that Manchester City could get injuries. Now, you look at last season, I was just looking at it earlier on. I couldn't find an end of season tally, but on April 4th, the latest injury table at that point put Manchester City in the 4th best position. This is injuries per 1,000 minutes rate, and they were
do you want to be at the top of that table or the bottom of that table?
You want to be at the top.
Okay.
And Manchester City were 4th, and the teams above them weren't playing on a number of different fronts like Manchester City were. Liverpool were 10th, so I don't think they were as bad as they were the previous season, but they were mid-table last season. Manchester City near the top of the table, so the form would suggest that injuries are going to go City's way.
Oh, okay, the one thing is, right, if you sign Thiago, you're automatically mid-table in that, because you know he's going to miss half of the games. And so you can't be surprised when your star midfielder misses half of the games, because that's the injury profile. It's a bit like when, wasn't it Varane when he arrived, everyone was like, well, this guy only plays 20, 22, 24 games a year. It's like, okay, well, maybe when Madrid were selling him, they knew something about it. So you just need to be aware of these things. Like, the best ability is availability.
Hey. We should get an applause for that. We should. The great example for that is Liverpool's centre back, and who plays alongside Van Dijk when Van Dijk is fit, and that's been a big problem for them. It was a problem last night where Joe Gomez wasn't fully good to go, and he was talking about it being another 2 weeks for Joel Matip last night, and Klopp said that this week was crazy. It was like we had a witch in the building. Honestly, I don't think it takes a witch to curse Joel Matip. We know that his injury record is bad, and as you say, maybe there are other factors here where you can actually identify and predict that there will be injuries in certain positions that maybe Manchester City don't have. Now, to be fair, Manchester City, like you look at someone like Kevin De Bruyne, who you can also count on getting injured at some point this season, and that has been the case for the last few years. The problem is that everybody else seems relatively robust.
They never signed Wijnaldum back. They never said, yeah, okay, come on back.
Too late, Roma.
Well, they not done that though. That just seemed like a fairly obvious grand. You got that money. Don't tell anybody. We're going to pay you fairly similar to what you're getting at PSG, but if you can do that for us, we'll work that out. Would that not have been an idea?
I think we floated this, didn't we? And Phil Egan was in here and had a very reasoned response to that. That was like, okay, maybe just a little bit too old. I don't know.
So let's go through some of these comments. Aina Carroll says, Mane arguably the best player is gone. Henderson long in the tooth. James Milner nearly 40. Thiago injured. Phillips and Elliott are mid-table players. The Phillips and Elliott, we don't know yet how good they're going to be, but at the moment, you would say that they're a step below the players that Manchester City are bringing
Phillips
in.
Definitely won't be like.
Well,
Elliott, I'd agree. Yeah, like Phillips is 25 now.
Okay,
Elliott is definitely too
yeah,
easy.
some players make it at that level at that stage. I'm not ruling off out the possibility, but you're right. My point is that they're miles and miles and miles behind whoever's coming off the bench for City, and you're trying to go toe to toe with City in this scenario. And I don't know. I think that these early games, like these are 6 points from the home game against Palace and a game against Fulham. You expect Manchester City to get 6 points from those games. That's why this result, as opposed to the Chelsea Spurs result, where you expect to drop some points against the top 4 teams. That's fine. I think at the end of the season, Chelsea will be like, that was okay, because you can see Spurs maybe taking something off City.
I'm not going to argue with you that drawing with Crystal Palace is the worst result in drawing with Tottenham. Of course it is, and like these are 4 bad points dropped by Liverpool. There is losing 4 points to Manchester City is always going to be worrisome. I'm just making the case that it's just I feel like we fell into this trap last season.
Well, John Claffey asks, were City not 12 points ahead at one stage last year? There were loads of games in hand. Were there at that stage when it was 12 points, or was it 12 points and no games in hand?
I'm not sure. I definitely tweeted
in the end,
I definitely tweeted around the time that we could be seeing the first team to win the league by 20 points when they were on that run and Liverpool were stuttering around the middle part of the season.
What happened, City? Was there something specific? I can't remember why did they stutter? Might they have stuttered because they didn't have a goal scoring machine at centre forward?
It's possibly a factor, to be fair. And like, I do think on Saturday that Manchester City win the game 4-0 last season, and they've had an ability to do that at home at multiple times over the past few years, like regularly beating Burnley 5-0. And I don't think what we've seen over the first 2 games I don't think the results that have come on the back of Erling Haaland being there. It's just things can get even better is the problem, because Erling Haaland at the weekend didn't even explode. In the previous week he was excellent. He had a couple of significant moments that really signified why he is one of the best young players in the world. So that's kind of the worrying thing, is that he's been good the first 2 weeks and he can get even better. Like his assist for Gundogan on Saturday was absolutely incredible. It was you think that, but they would have found another way to win that game 4-0 last season.
Yeah, but I kind of think that doesn't matter, right? They were a very good team, and they've been a very good team for the last 3 or 4 seasons, record breaking in some instances. But they've got better, is the problem. You can't deny they've got better by adding him in. It turns out we were concerned. We hoped as neutrals that perhaps there would be a betting in period and it would take a bit of time, and that actually he would upset the equilibrium of the team. Blah 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 blah. Didn't happen. Hasn't happened. Now it's very early. Maybe there's a massive. I see pictures of him in the sea in Spain. It's like maybe that would piss people off somehow. I don't know. Maybe they were all allowed to go to Spain and it's no big deal. But like the rest of the league is desperately hoping that somehow something happens where a resentment creeps into that changing room and people start passing to him on purpose out of rivalry. That's the only thing that I can see that might possibly go wrong here. Some Mbappe style, like there are many kings in this world, there's only one God. I am Mbappe, Romario, who was the original with the quote. I am Haaland, I am God. That's a God complex infesting the changing room is the only thing that can stop them now, right?
Yeah.
You still think Liverpool could stop them?
I still think Liverpool can mount a title challenge. Yeah, I'm like.
How close will they get it now? Will they lead the league at any point this season?
Are you asking me to honestly predict? And my honest prediction is no. I don't think so. I think Manchester City will. I predicted before the season Manchester City will win the league, and I'm predicting now that Manchester City will win the league. Them going 4 points clear of Liverpool certainly strengthens that.
Well, it removes a lot of the sense of jeopardy that we might have had if the results had been somehow the opposite. We'd all be very excited.
I just think that we're still in the realm of prediction now, and like at the start of the season, if you asked me would Liverpool lead Manchester City at any point, I'd be like, I'm not actually sure they would, because I still think Man City will win.
Start of the season.
I know, but so did City. So did City, and like Liverpool, to be fair, have had Manchester United third up, and Manchester, I'm talking about the start of the season.
Man United must be suddenly going, wow, we're playing. This team aren't great.
Yeah. My point is just that let's just not write the season off completely for the title race. And as we saw on Sunday, maybe those two teams in Spurs and Chelsea will go a lot longer than we think. And like maybe it's last year's prediction. Maybe last year's prediction is actually the one that maintains it this year, where I thought that Chelsea were actually going to challenge for the Premier League title after winning the Champions League, and Liverpool would fall back a little bit. Maybe that's just what happens this year, where Chelsea become the second in command and Liverpool finish third. And like I know a lot of people made that prediction for Spurs, that they would be able to usurp Liverpool as well. So maybe we can separate those two things. Is the title race over? No. Are Liverpool going to win it? Possibly also no.
Okay, very quickly, some comments. Owen Cleary, the question is, have Man City turned the Premier League into the Farmers League? Chris Cal says, title over then. Richard Redball says, the Klopp smile is starting to slip. Van Dijk defends on vibes, and Klopp is having a go at reporters already. The curve is on the way down. Owen Cleary, I've already done that one, I think. Liverpool certainly have an ageing midfield, and the drop-off beneath that is young and unproven. Certainly a drop incoming. 2 or 3 midfielders needed next year. Maybe can you convince and spend 100 million and sign Jude Bellingham now and change the vibe? Genghis Khan says Liverpool have the longest current unbeaten streak in the league, 20 games. Relax, Ger. I mean, you get a point and you're unbeaten, but you get a point and you fall 2 behind. That's what's happening. So the unbeaten is kind of like they would have been better. Literally, they would have been better losing their opening day game and winning last night. Yeah,
I do think because we're in a small sample size, we can be forgiven for what I've seen here. And I do think there were a couple of moments against Fulham. Now, Fulham were good, very, very good that day. But Luis Diaz should have scored against Fulham. Definitely should have. And they should have scored possibly before Palace did last night. They should have been in the lead.
Oh, totally.
So I think within those 180 minutes, we can make an argument to be made. There are a couple of free things that have happened here. But if this continues to happen, if Mo Salah continues to underwhelm as the season goes on, obviously they've got no chance. They need him to fire. It's as simple as that, and that goes for the vast majority of their star players, because they can't switch it like City can in that front three, where if Grealish is off the boiler, Foden's off the boiler, they just have one or the other to hop in. Yeah. All right. 7:44 this morning. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Now we're back in Vicar Street in association with Cadbury FC. Tomorrow night, it's an absolutely massive roadshow coming your way. Michael Owen, Ian Wright, Emma Byrne and Karen Carney are going to be our guests. There will be some brilliant stories on the night, as you would expect. And we'll also be talking about the big issues in world football as well. It's an exclusive off-air event. Tickets are limited. Don't delay. otbsports.com/events. And a reminder, ticket proceeds will go towards supporting Irish women's grassroots football. T's and C's apply. We'll see you on the night. Coming up between now and 10 this morning, Niall O'Toole is in Munich at the European Championships. He's going to join us to talk to us about the context of the achievement of the rowers, the continuing cycle that we're in at the moment, and how much we should enjoy that. Sports pages for you at 8:35. We'll have a lap of honour from John Duggan, deservedly so, after another big win in virtual insanity. Gareth Roberts is going to join us to talk about Liverpool at 8:50, and Max Wachman is going to talk to us about the Dublin Horse Show, which takes place this weekend. We want to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, or of course you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream for us as well.
I realise it doesn't quite work the same, but you've been yerring away Arsenal now for a while, and things have changed, and you're getting sucked in because they're on telly. You're like, the backside of it is like, ooh, I love these guys now.
And they're on TV again this week. They're in the half-5 game against Bournemouth on Saturday. So they're just...
You're like Michael Cheika. They're your boys now.
My boys now. I think, to be fair, I was I right last season when I yerred them away?
How did they finish?
They did finish 5th, so yeah, I guess so. They did battle it in the end, which I thought was coming. Although I think I started to change my tune within the last month, where I thought this could actually happen, and it didn't. So maybe they'll tease us along for the duration of the season. But as I said last week, it could be a case where they have a very good year, and there are 4 teams better than them again this season.
When Gabriel Jesus signed, I quickly found his XG and WhatsApped it to you, and I was like, look, this guy's rubbish. Don't be getting your hopes up, Bets. And then all of a sudden, it's wrong. So whatever was happening to him.
Well, I mean, you say that he should have scored 5 goals on Saturday. And
I know, but
like 2.
You take that. You take the 2 goals being scored actually, as opposed to the expected goals that he's missing.
Yeah, and the first goal was an XG of .00001. I would suspect it was an absolutely phenomenal finish, and he's just been a revelation, and by all accounts has been outstanding behind the scenes as well. Inserted immediately into the leadership group that Arteta has created around Martin Odegaard. Just reading a piece in The Athletic yesterday, apparently it's a 3-man leadership group. Odegaard, Gabriel Jesus and Granit Xhaka. Granit Xhaka is probably going to become Arsenal captain again at some point this season when Odegaard is out or is rested. What a turnaround that whole story arc has been. And I think even as recent as last week or the week before, Arsenal were saying, well, we'll buy Youri Tielemans if we can sell Granit Xhaka. And I'm not sure how true that is, because when you look at the All or Nothing documentary, I know everybody comes across really well because Arsenal are taking part in it. But Granit Xhaka does come across as really well, and even when he gets a red card against Liverpool last season in the EFL Cup, he's laughing and joking with Bukayo Saka about how he saved the team from a certain goal at that point because Saka gave the ball away, and Saka should be thanking him for taking the red card, taking one for the team. And he just comes across as really well liked in the dressing room, despite the fact that the fans really hated him, and he hated the fans for a period of time there. But he scored at the weekend, the fans love him again, and maybe he loves the fans again, and maybe this is just a situation where he saved his Arsenal career because Youri Tielemans wasn't great on Saturday, and maybe Arsenal are now done. Maybe they're not going to sign that extra midfielder that they were being spoken about for the entirety of the summer. So that's been interesting. That's an unexpected early storyline that himself and Jesus have become part of that leadership group. With Jesus, I'm sure part of it is to do with the fact that he's Brazilian. There's a big Portuguese-speaking contingent in that dressing room now at this point. People who are called Gabriel, people who call Portuguese or people who speak Portuguese seem to make up a huge percentage of the entire dressing room. And I guess just his winning mentality, having done a lot so young, himself and Zinchenko, I know, celebrated together immediately after one of the goals on Saturday. It all just kind of makes sense now. It's all very exciting that this is a team that can withstand the setbacks that are going to come, because they have a very forgiving opening to the season. And once that fixture list was announced, you're thinking to yourself, right, okay, they weren't too bad at the end of last season, so they should start the season better. And it seems that that's exactly what happened. So Bournemouth this weekend, you would think that they'll get to 9 points. And what a start that'd be.
And what would success look like at the end of the season?
A top 4. Even though I have almost forgiven them for not getting top 4, because it's very possible that Chelsea, Spurs, Liverpool will end up with more points, I still don't think that'll be acceptable to the hierarchy of the club. They've spent so much money over the last 2 windows, and yes, they may not have the 4th best squad in the league, they may have the 5th best squad in the league, but I still think they have to find a way to ensure that they finish top 4. They're going to have Europe to contend with. That's probably going to come along at the same time as the fixtures get a little bit tougher, and they're probably going to have a nightmare October, I think it is, where the fixtures just turn for them. But maybe not. Maybe this is the season where they start winning those games. Or
it's just Champions League qualification. So if they win the Europa League and finish 5th, great season.
Obviously, yeah. That's obviously a high wire act though, and the master of the Europa League and Unai Emery didn't manage to make that happen for them over the number of seasons that he was there. And I know the semi-final when Villarreal won it 2 seasons ago was particularly painful as well. So that could be another avenue into it. I think they'll be looking at it through the lens of the Premier League, because by the same token, you can make a case that they are in the top 4 squads in the league, and it wouldn't be as big an achievement as it would have been last season for them to finish top 4, because last season I think it would have been, and it was a very young squad. This year it's still young, but everybody's a year older, and the players that they've added have got Premier League medals, and we haven't even seen some of the new signings yet, like in Fabio Vieira, for example, who's going to be a very exciting addition to that midfield. Things are looking very rosy all of a sudden, but we know how Arsenal goes, and we know that there will be moments where they will kind of lull you back into believing that they're just a banter club again.
You're back, though.
I was back last season. Definitely, I just didn't believe.
You're in love with this team now.
Like, how could he not be? Like, how could he not be? Like, with the, like, I mean, it's obviously with certain elements of the team. I'm talking about like some of the young attackers, like in Saka and Smith Rowe, and even the likes of Odegaard and Jesus, who's come in and made such a good impact. I'm talking about those players. So yeah, like, I mean, it's hard not to be in love with some of those attacking players, because they're just so exciting, and they're just phenomenal footballers. So, like, two teams with 100% records at the top of the table.
There you go. I mean, that's that you are the lone title challenger at this stage. That's what we're saying. Colin Boog has also texted in to say Edu is a dreamboat too, so that helps.
It absolutely does.
All of a sudden, Edu's a genius. Like, whereas a couple of years ago, we were like, he needs to be gone. What's going on? They're wasting so much money.
I think that it was almost like the predecessors to the Edu era, which kind of put him in a tricky enough position where, like, and it's not even like directors of football, it was kind of like scouts and heads of recruitment that they had, like when Sven Mislintat was in, and it's like, the connection with Dortmund, we can be the new Dortmund. That's what Arsenal fans were saying. I think that was very exciting, and when that project kind of ended prematurely, people were like, what are they doing? And it turned out actually that was probably the best way to go, because maybe the Dortmund thing could only work for Borussia Dortmund and maybe not for Arsenal. But I think Edu's biggest thing that we've seen from the documentary is that he's just been hugely supportive of Mikel Arteta. Like, he's asked, is it easy to support him over this Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang situation? And he says, no, it's not easy. Like, you have Venkatesham coming in as well, the CEO, and saying that, listen, we need to find a way to reconcile Aubameyang with the club. Like, people running the club were not of the same opinion as Mikel Arteta with how you handle this, but they backed their manager, and they've helped their manager, and they've given the manager the information that he's needed when it comes to recruitment. And like, you can easily make that comparison between Arsenal and Manchester United at the moment about like where United are going, and like the help that Ten Hag has or hasn't got, and he's, in my opinion, been left hung out to dry a small bit when it comes to some of the signings that he's made.
We all think that. Like
look at, like, Arsenal were looking at Martinez during the summer, and for one reason or another decided that they weren't going to sign him. They were actually going to sign him as a left back, I think, because of his height. Like, I
mean, he could easily be maybe Ten Hag doesn't want to play three at the back, but he could be, And was it yesterday? Was it Daniel said that he thinks he could play in midfield this week? So, like, the jury's not in on whether or not Martinez is going to be a good quality player in the Premier League, but like, he's arrived in a bad situation and he hasn't immediately stepped up.
No, so. And like, I think that the other thing there is, like, just with regards to the dressing room culture, apparently Steve Round has had a really big impact in on that front with Arsenal. Like, he would have been an assistant to David Moyes at Manchester United, and all of a sudden now he's having an impact at Arsenal. And again,
in what role?
Is it an assistant coach? I think assistant first team coach, or first team coach. And
it's funny how all that stuff really matters. Mark Dunning says the mood of the ground in the Emirates has totally changed over the last 18 months or so. Fans are genuinely excited at the moment. I think that comes from the quality of young players. First off, that gives everybody, and then the manager saying stuff and being consistent, and actually getting rid of Aubameyang. Like,
it worked.
It was a very important moment where there's a wrestling going on between the money and the sunk cost and the fallacy of sunk cost. Well, we've already spent all this money and we've invested so much time and emotional energy in him, and he's our leader, but like, he's driving to the North London Derby in his Batman car late, revving the car, stuck in traffic. You're like, come early or don't come at all.
Yeah.
Because you're the captain. So I think,
like, we weren't sure. Like, we spoke a lot about that on the show last year, and I was very unsure about that decision, because he was awesome at his best for Arsenal, and goals are notoriously hard to buy, and Arsenal are missing them.
It turns out, like, you need a style of play that's going to deliver chances for people again and again and again and again, and like, that has to be the overarching thing. And this is the difficulty. So this is the difficulty with the green, yellow and red last night from Manchester United's perspective. Like, I think that for all of the brilliance of the analysis that you see from Gary Neville, I didn't see the slot live, so we've only talked about this afterwards with Colin, but so Neville did the whole transfers since Ferguson, power rankings, as you will, performance rankings, and the vast majority of them are in red, as we know. We probably know this by now, but 2 players made the green, and it's Bruno and Zlatan, right? Like, I think that's their problem, is that they're addicted to these moments, and they're addicted to the celebrity moments, as opposed to actually having a style of play that is going to overwhelm the opponents. And that's what Man United need. That's what Arsenal have built. They got rid of... You would have put Aubameyang in the green, right? But actually, he damaged the club. Forcing everything to go through damages in the short term and the long term, because you can't build a plan. You're then reliant on that one individual to show up. And if they don't show up, if they have a bad night, or if they're marked out of it, or if the opposition decide, well, all they've got is this guy, then the team isn't actually benefiting from having that guy in the team.
I think the best comparison there is the Ronaldo situation at United. Like, the Ronaldo situation at United is like the Aubameyang situation on a Mario Kart mushroom. It's just, everything about it is just bigger, more goals, or seemingly more explosive potential, but also more problems. And the millstone around the neck that he has proved to be for the club seems to be infecting everything on a much bigger scale than what Aubameyang was like at Arsenal.
I actually suspect, because he's a very traditional number 9, that they might have been able to make him work. But I don't know. I don't know what position Bruno plays, really. I don't fully understand how and where on the pitch he's supposed to get the ball, and where and how he's supposed to influence the game over a 5 or 9 or 12 game stretch. And maybe there are football minds who can actually accommodate him in the team, and the team can look the same week in, week out, but he can do something that nobody else can do, and that's fine. But at the same time, I don't think he hasn't been in the green for the last 18 months. Like, he hasn't been contributing for the last 18 months. I don't know. I think
the position thing is definitely an issue, and how, like, I mean, he seemed to have broken the mould for a number 10 in the Premier League when he first arrived. Everybody was like, the 10 is dead. There is nobody who can play this position anymore because of the requirements of modern football and the pressing game. And Bruno, during COVID, was doing it, and he was kind of defying the expectations. But maybe those predictions were correct, and there needs to be a new role found for him, because the 10 maybe just doesn't work as great as it used to 10 years ago. But we have buried the lead here this weekend, and I guess from the entire weekend, and from yesterday's show into this morning's show, and that is, of course, Saturday morning. You wake up nice and early, get yourself a coffee, hope for Lampard to finally put Aston Villa fans out of their misery.
No,
but it turns out
you never hope for that.
Frank Lampard maybe isn't a great manager either.
It was 2 heavyweights slugging it out, 2 kind of like heavyweights past their prime in one of those bouts that doesn't get televised. I know. It's going to be very interesting to see what they become as managers. Like, Everton is obviously a very difficult job, and they definitely have a witch in the building. Every game, somebody goes off after 15 minutes and gets injured, and then they have to sign somebody to fill that place, and then another injury happens.
Yeah, like the witch in the building. A lot of clubs have had witches in the buildings, and the witch seems to come back year after year after year, and then all of a sudden they manage to fix it. Like, Manchester City don't have any witches in the building, it turns out, and they're like, that helps them be consistently excellent.
Well, that's they obviously have the best medical staff.
Yeah,
and frequently that's the thing that separates one team from another.
But in terms of the non-witch stuff, the stuff that Ger can control, like, did you see more on Saturday that you thought, you know what, maybe?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Did he pick Tyrone Mings? Yes, he did. So Tyrone Mings obviously eyeballed him, like, stood over him and said, what do you have to say to me? To my face? And got straight back in the team. And I was talking with Mick McCarthy about this yesterday. He loves Tyrone Mings. Now,
Mick or Gerard?
Mick. But Stephen Doyle's like, the English media never point out his problems. And Mick's like, no, there are no problems. I'm doing it, a disservice before Mick's like, that's not what I said. But he's very defensive, as in a way that, like, you can only be of the players that you love. And so that's the Villa fans love Tyrone Mings, and they feel like there's something spiritual about him. Like, Paul McGrath loves him. And that stuff matters in the Premier League, because, like, the quality from those, you can throw a blanket over them. Yes, Tyrone Mings makes mistakes, and they don't really the Gerrard management team certainly last season didn't believe in him, and would tell him as soon as he got the ball to get rid of it, and he'd be under instructions. You'd hear them shouting at him. not. I mean, I'm sure they shouted at everybody, but they weren't shouting like, "Be creative, get your head up, see what you can do, you be your best self." It was like, "Don't screw it up." So I think that that was interesting to see that they reverted to him. They also put Ollie Watkins back in the team. Like, I don't know about Coutinho, really. I think Coutinho's going to be a man for moments.
Got injured as well, didn't he?
Well, they weren't sure if it was cramp or not.
Oh, right, okay.
But Emi Buendia came off the bench and was really good. And so maybe Buendia finally starts to deliver week in, week out on the promise that he showed. And Coutinho's like a rotation player who you don't have to rely on.
What a sad decline for Philippe Coutinho, a rotation player at Aston Villa. Because I thought Aston Villa would be a little bit of a trampoline for his career. Go link up with his former buddy. Drop down maybe a level below his talents just to play for Aston Villa for a while,
and then go to Newcastle. Well, I don't know.
Like, I mean, Gerard has this Tyrone Mings thing. I guess he's got a little bit lucky with it, because if he didn't put Tyrone Mings back into the team against Everton, the Diego Carlos injury then makes it look like he's only putting him back into the team because Diego Carlos is out for the whole season, and he'd be stuck with, and you're only putting him in because you don't want to play Ezri Konsa and Callum Chambers together at the heart of your defence. Whereas at least he's got out ahead of that, so he's got a little break on that front. He
has, and I guess you make your own look in some ways. And he did put him back in the team, and Mings responded, and Emi Martinez is still pretty interesting as a goalkeeper, and there's enough there. But like, I don't know. I think like Danny Ings is on a whack of money. Luca Dean is their highest paid player. They just haven't managed the thing that you want them to manage in a way that suggests they understand the cost of having Luca Dean be the price that Luca Dean is, that you can't have two players on a similar salary who can both make an impact. Like, there's a limited number of resources, and so therefore you shouldn't be signing players from other Premier League teams. They've done okay in the transfer market, but a load of players have been burned out who are on high wages and who aren't in squads. And so look, I don't know. There'll have to be some more incomings now. We'll see where they finish. But like, it's mid-table. That's kind of your ambition at this stage. Like, they struggled to beat Everton 2-1. Everton are going to be in a relegation battle. Villa will be on the fringes of that relegation battle, in between 8th and 15th. That's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, it's I don't know, mid-table with that squad is probably about right, but you obviously had loftier notions.
With the investment, it might not be. If you were just a bit smarter with your investments, and I again, we were talking about this on Friday. I blame them for letting Carney Chukwuemeka go. I think, like, if you're setting your stall out as like one of the best young progressive managers in English football with an eye on the Liverpool job, and there's a superstar Wunderkind at the club, you think that you're going to be like, I'm going to turn you into the best footballer in the world. And
that would help. But is Steven Gerrard more or less likely to get the Liverpool job now than he was before he took the Aston Villa job?
I would say at the moment less likely, because the reality of what life is like in the Premier League is week in, week out grind, and he's under that microscope in a way that he wasn't at Rangers. Like, people didn't watch Rangers week in, week out the way they're watching Villa. He wasn't on TV. He wasn't making the error of like coming across like a bit of a macho whatever about Tyrone Mings. Like, why did he have to tell us about that thing with Tyrone Mings? Why didn't he just tell Tyrone Mings and put Tyrone Mings back in the team? Everyone was like, oh, brilliant man management. Took the captaincy off him. Tyrone Mings responded with a brilliant performance. Now, maybe Tyrone Mings only responded because Steven Gerrard went public. Maybe that's the only thing that Mings understands. That's certainly what Souness was saying, I think, in his column at the weekend. So, anyway, speaking of managers, there are a few still GAA jobs up for grabs that we had anticipated might be filled by now. There's been a few, like the Kilkenny hurling job was open for, it seems like, about 8 minutes, and they got the job done. The Dublin hurling job is still there, so they obviously have a candidate in mind. But the biggest, the Hollywood job, the Mayo footballers, what's the story?
John Fogarty in his piece today has the stat that it's now 50 days since James Horan stepped down. So the 50-day anniversary of James Horan stepping down, we can finally dip back into the Mayo job. Things have got more intriguing on the Mayo front, it seems. Like, Oisin McConville has now joined one of the backroom teams, allegedly. Yeah,
right.
This is Ray Dempsey's backroom team that is apparently going for the job. So we've obviously brought you news over the last few weeks about who the other contenders are. So this is Colm Keys this morning in the Irish Independent. Oisin McConville will be part of a strong backroom team. The rest of this backroom team is interesting as well. Declan O'Keefe of Kerry is said to be on the ticket as well. He was working with Colm Collins in Clare over the last few years. there's some suggestion that Keith Higgins could be on this team. Some suggestion that James Burke could be on this team. And then other names such as Kevin O'Neill, Terry Kennedy, Daniel Kilgallen and Martin Barrett potentially involved in various parts of the backroom team as well.
This is all Ray Dempsey's.
Yeah. So so like I'm sure they're kind of like being brought in. Maybe I'm not sure is it a full-time basis or is it temporary. But what's interesting is that Daniel Kilgallen's name has actually come up twice in the papers today. Once in the Mayo situation, he is from Mayo, but also has come up in the situation in Munich at the moment with the Irish athletics team. He's been involved with training Israel Olatunde over the last few weeks, and he's done a bit of a training camp with him. So he's got him up to becoming, I guess, on the verge of becoming Ireland's fastest ever man over the next couple of months. So he's obviously, his stock is pretty high right now, and for him to be brought into a GEA setup would be very interesting indeed. I mean, it may not be a situation where Dempsey gets this gig, and it could be one of the other two tickets that seems to be in the driving C40s that do get it. But down the line, I wouldn't be surprised to see his name linked with Mayo again.
Israel Olatunde, only 20.
Yeah.
So turned 20 on the 29th of May this year. So, he'll be 20 all the way through to the end of next May as well. And he's been running personal bests all season, and he's got another one to go tonight in the semi-finals at 7:15. This is really interesting. Like having a 20-year-old sprinter who's running at this pace. Like I think Paul Hession made his Irish record towards the end of his career. That was the absolute peak of it. But you'd expect a 20-year-old sprinter to continue to get faster for the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Like he can sprint in your 34, 36. This is incredibly exciting. Yeah,
no, it's Irish sprinting is in a very interesting place, in a place that we haven't seen for quite some time. And I think Olatunde probably, like, his performance yesterday was sensational, just to kind of win his heat in the way he did. Out again tonight in the semi-final at 7:15 this evening. So I think we've got the opportunity to watch Rashida Adeleke at some point today as well on the 400 metres. So like Irish sprinters are doing unbelievable work at the moment, and I guess with Olatunde, his star maybe hasn't risen in as conspicuous a way as, say, Adeleke has over the last few years. So I think we're still starting to get to know this guy on a level that maybe we've already got familiar with Adeleke as well. So this is kind of like his breakout games, it feels, and yesterday was his breakout performance.
Yeah, UCD student from Dundalk, and he's in the semi-final against the Olympic champion Lamont Marcel Jacobs this evening at 7:15. So make sure you tune in for that. He needs to run one of the two fastest overall times to get through to the final or finish in the top two either. And so that's the crack with that. If you've got anything you want to get off your chest, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, or of course you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream as well. Now, a reminder, ahead of the Cadbury FC Roadshow tomorrow evening, we're deciding the top 5 most influential Irish players in both the men's and women's game. A reminder, of course, that all the ticket proceeds for the show in Vicar Street will go towards supporting Irish women's grassroots football. Check out otbsports.com/events for T's and C's. You can get them on Ticketmaster. You can get them on the OTB Sports website as well. And we will see you on the night. We're back after this with 3-time Olympian Niall O'Toole talking about Paul O'Donovan and Fintan McCarthy's gold at the European Championships. First, though, the lads in the show last night debated O'Donovan's position as one of Ireland's greatest sports people.
Yeah. A slight tangent is done for another session. It may be back, it may not. We'll see.
Next week's agenda: Paul O'Donovan, Ireland's greatest sportsman.
Oh.
Person.
Are you're into
See what I did there?
Yeah.
By accident.
Ireland's greatest.
One of Ireland's greatest. At least put him in the bloody conversations, for God's sake.
He got to be in the top 20, doesn't he?
Oh, top 20. He's dominating. He's dominating a world sport in a way that no other Irish person except for Katie Taylor has ever done.
Top 5. That's bigger. Top 5. I don't know.
Who are you knocking out? It'd be interesting to know who you're knocking out.
Yeah, there you go.
Why does anyone have to be out? He's automatically in.
Well, I'm asking you, who do you even out?
I'm not doing it.
We have.
I'm just saying we're out of time.
We're out of time.
Oh, yeah.
Arthur O'D, thank you.
I'd have him ahead of nearly anyone.
Mick McCarthy, thank you.
You would, yeah.
Can't leave it on that, Joe. You can't. You'd have him number 1.
He's a multiple time Olympic. He's dominating.
Yeah.
One of the bigger sport. What do you mean? Would I have him out?
Pete's having a hernia out there. We got to go.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The best rugby insight and analysis.
I don't think there's probably any positives to come out of just getting rid of Ian Foster. The players are still happy with Ian Foster.
OTB Sports Rugby.
They don't look like the All Blacks. They're not playing like the All Blacks. They're barely clinging on.
Subscribe to the rugby stream on the OTB Sports app now.
Hi, this is Ian Wright, and I've teamed up with Off the Ball and the Cadbury FC for a very special night in Dublin this August. I'm going to be looking ahead to the new season, celebrating all that's great about the women's game alongside my former international teammate and dear friend Michael Owen and a couple of Arsenal legends in Karen Carney and Emma Byrne. Tickets for Vicar Street on August the 17th are on sale now, with all ticket proceeds going to support women's grassroots football. So hopefully I'll see you there. Take it easy.
If your business relies on a van, that wouldn't sound good. But this does. Get up to 75% off van insurance. Now available in FBD branches nationwide. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. 75% no claims discount based on 5 years claims free. Available on new van policies used for farm or business purposes. Terms and conditions apply. Underwritten by FBD Insurance plc. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
It's 11 minutes past 8. You're watching OTB AM. Perhaps you're listening to us on OTB Sports Radio. Wherever you're with us this morning, we're very glad to have you. If you'd like to get involved, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. You can send us a text on that if you want, or of course you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. We're live every morning with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. I'm delighted to say that we've got Niall O'Toole with us to talk to us about the rowing. Niall, how are you getting on?
Hey, Ger. Yeah, fabulous. I'm pumped after that weekend. What a weekend, huh? Incredible. You see my backdrop here? Rocking out the girls here in my backdrop.
Very good.
No, awesome weekend.
Very good. You're obviously doing a bit of rowing yourself. You're looking well.
Yeah, just you can't fatten a thoroughbred, Ger.
There you go.
Have you seen a fat greyhound? There you go. Yeah, just it's natural.
Have you been inspired to get back?
I know I have been doing a bit. I do a bit. I keep going. That kind of way. I'm inspired by John. John Duggan, he's been smashing me, that kind of way. He's definitely in the fitness buzz, so that's I'm joining John in that sphere.
One thing that I'm always interested in is there a direct correlation between kids getting in the boat and watching stuff at the weekend, or even like middle-aged people getting in a boat and seeing, I love rowing. Like, are we as a country wakening up to our potential as a hotbed of rowing globally?
Yeah, there's definitely more activity on the water, definitely more people joining it at schools level, and also even kind of veterans coming back to the sport and people joining the sport for the first time as well. No matter what age, it's a sport for all. No impact. It's the skill you can pick up relatively. It takes a little bit of time, but you can get the feeling of that boat moving relatively quickly. So yeah, it's a sport for all, definitely. We have capacity issues within the clubs and some infrastructural problems really in the clubs to deal with the amount of people that are coming into the sport. But yes, it's one for the future. And we've always, I said this year before, Joe, it's sports, rowing is a perfect sport for us in lots of ways. It's amateur. It's based on volunteerism, which Ireland is extremely good at. So yeah, and it's a really tough sport, which we're pretty hard as a nation. So yeah,
I remember talking to somebody about this before. Like, our genetic predisposition is we're not massively long like the Nordics or the Central Europeans. We're kind of just about the right size to sit in a boat and row, pull like a dog, essentially.
Absolutely, and we are tough. I've raced throughout Europe. I've been in lots of different training camps throughout Europe, and when I went into the Italian system or the Norwegian system, I realised that I'm as tough as any of these guys, and I was the same as everybody else at home. So yeah, we are tough fighters, tough racers, tough trainers. So it's really, really ideal for us as a nation.
We'll talk about the men in a minute, but it's the women that we should start with who are behind you there. So
the girls, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about
jumping up. Yeah,
the silver this weekend, but it wasn't just the silver, it was a bunch of forts as well. So like there's a crop coming through at the same time, again pushing each other and on the verge of equaling the success of the men.
Most definitely. I mean, there's definitely been a massive upturn in girls rowing and women's rowing, since the medal of Tokyo. It's always that breakthrough medal, Ger, that and similar to the guys, similar to Paul's medal back in Rio. There's always been that breakthrough medal that one kind of stake in the ground, and there's been a massive influx of girls who were good club rowers or had made a national team before, who have really, really kicked on. And I think just the head coach doesn't put out bad crews. He was willing to put out an 8 at this European Championships. Now, it didn't race because, unfortunately, Sunita got ill. But it just shows the level of depth that Ireland would have. Like, we've never put out an 8 in women's rowing before. So it just shows the level of depth. These girls are pushing each other hard, and there's a whole range of under 23s coming through. So we at the under 23s we got, I think it was 4 medals at the under 23s. I think it's a couple of silvers, a couple of bronzes. So there's a huge flow of new talent coming through that pipeline. So it's looking very, very, very healthy. The girls, did an incredible job the weekend. So and again, you're right, Ger, we got 3/4 by really, really small margins. It was incredibly unlucky. I think we were 7th or 8th on the medal table. One of those medals converted, and we would have been, 3rd or 4th in the medal table at the European. So it's a really, really healthy situation. And just being around the girls this weekend, there's a really, really good, strong energy. There's a real toughness about that group. There's a real solidarity about that group. Given that said, they're all going into training camp now. They're all hopping on a bus on the training camp this week, preparation for the World Championships in 6 weeks' time in Rudnici in Prague. And they will be knocking lumps out of each other in the next couple of weeks, because that boat is not settled. The four, the pair, the double, those boats are not settled, and they will be settled in the next 2 or 3 weeks before the World Championships. So even there's a really good camaraderie in the team, but they're also knocking lumps out of each other, and they will continue to do that. So when you're racing at the for a European medal, not only racing for a European medal, you're racing to stake your claim on your seat in that boat. And that competitiveness, Antonio likes to keep them kind of on edge, and that will continue right away for the next 2 weeks. So you think they're kind of having an easy kind of build into the World Championships. They go back into camp, and it's going to be a difficult 2 weeks while they sort out which is really the final solid cruise for the World Championships in 6 weeks.
Because that was definitely the noticeable thing about seeing the names in the boats this time, that half of the team had their Olympic medals from last year and half didn't. So there's obviously been a bit of chopping and changing. Can you talk us through a little bit about how those decisions are actually made behind the scenes, and what those weeks where things get particularly intense actually look like?
Well, what they'll do is they'll break them into pairs again. So they'll break them the 4 into pairs. So those 6 athletes will be in pairs, and they will do some pairs matrix. So they'll find out the quickest pair, and then they'll put them into the 4. So they'll take the top 2, for instance, the top 2 pairs in those pairs matrix, and then they'll put them into the 4. They'll race them against a controlled boat, like a double, or if they feel the conditions are still enough that they can get a good baseline on the races. So sometimes you have to have a control boat just in case the wind picks up or drops, and they'll race that 4 against the control boat and find out which is the best 4. They'll chop and change the calibration, but chop and change those seats, but they'll do it based on the pair, who's moving the pair the quickest, and then they'll pop them in and do another round of combinations in the 4. And so there's a huge kind of matrix around getting the best crew. There's also a little bit of feel, and the coach will have to use that little bit of feel, like who's performed the best in training, who's the most consistent performer, who's maybe creaking a little bit in terms of injury and things like that. But this boat is not settled. These girls will be knocking lumps out of each other for the next 2 years to make sure that they're in the boat that's going to get the Olympic medal in 2024. The whole hope is here, guys, that the pair that we have a 4 and a pair in the Olympics that gets 2 medals. That's the goal. But it looks like it is now at the moment. The 4 is the main boat, with the pair kind of being the secondary boat. But hopefully, when we all get settled, that pair, or the pair who is picked, will improve and have time to do so. So hopefully that answers.
Is there ever like just a straight race, like where three of the seats on the boat are settled and then they have like one race to see who goes fastest, or is it?
They can. You may have a particularly kind of one seat. You may have two people that are so close, almost inseparable in terms of all the matrix. So you'll step in, so they'll switch out that person and they'll do some pairs matrix either against the four or just on a timed piece. You have to remember, guys, if the wind picks up and dies, that can affect the result. So sometimes they have a control boat to make sure that it is fair. But again, it's there's only 4 seats. Somebody's going to miss out, and the person on the bank is winning. It's always winning a hair's breadth of the people on the water. That's the nature of the beast, and somebody is going to miss out, but that's the nature of the beast. We can't race with 5 in the boat, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I guess that level of competition drives them on. Let's talk a little bit about the men's. Okay, so I think you probably heard the conversation there about.
What's the story like? Have we not made a decision that Paul O'Donovan is the greatest Irish sportsman of all time? Is that not done? Why are we having this conversation, Ger?
Go for it there. Make the case.
An Olympic silver, what is he, 20, 27, 28? An Olympic silver, an Olympic gold, 4 world championships, 3 European titles, and just a rake of other things. So, to add to that, World Cups, most World Cups. Like, just I just don't know why we're... Okay, if Paul wins, how many world championships and many Olympic golds does Paul O'Donovan need to win to be the greatest sports person of all time in Ireland? Is there a number? Can we pick a number? Because he's going to do it. So, he is the greatest. In my opinion, what he does is it just surpasses anything else. Now, I might be biased. Okay, I'll give you that. I might be a little bit biased. But it is a world sport. It is a sport that is... Ireland is... And don't forget what he's done within the sport, but how he's kind of led that team as well. So his influence is not just within what he's doing; it's also within the broader sport itself. He's given us all, a very, very high bar, and you can teach it to girls. Everybody's reaching it. So can we? The question is to you, Ger. What is the number?
I don't know. I think that it becomes increasingly clear in people's minds that he's not alone in the conversation, but like right there with anything that any of our great sports people have achieved. I do think that I hate these conversations in the aftermath of something like this, because it feels like you're nitpicking. But Roy Keane was the best player at Man United during their best period, and that's obviously football is a global sport with huge participation. But he's at the same level as Roy Keane, right? I think that's we can all agree they'd be great company. They'd be good crack, and I think they would kill each other.
They would kill each other. I'd like to be a fly in the wall or in that padded room. Either way, if you got those two guys together, it would be good to see.
The killing each other thing is interesting. To become one of the greatest sports people your country has ever produced, there obviously has to be that killer, that ruthlessness that has to be part of your character. How does that manifest itself for Paul O'Donovan? Because obviously what we see in front of the microphone is the very happy-go-lucky version of Paul O'Donovan. Yeah, it's
we were just having pints after the race on Saturday. I was having pints. Paul wasn't, and I is he going to the World Championships or not? That kind of way. The perception is that Paul doesn't care. Paul cares. He deeply cares. The perception is that he doesn't care about his legacy. He doesn't care about the numbers. He doesn't care about. Paul deeply cares. When you're an elite athlete and performing at the level of it, you have to create a persona. He's created a persona, and that persona is flippant. I don't care, and that relieves a lot of the pressure. I think. Within that kind of that extreme kind of pressurized situation that he puts himself under. So yeah, it's a persona, but he deeply cares, and it's all from my point of view. It's all just smoke and mirrors. He's a highly intelligent person, knows exactly what he's going to say all the time. It's all a bit of a kind of, if you like, I hate to use the word front because that's not what it is. You understand? It's how he copes really with that pressure, and it relieves that pressure on him. And yeah, I think so. Yeah, he has created this persona, and it helps him. It helps him. And like with all elite athletes, they have to put on that cloak every day, and it helps them through their day and helps them through competition. And that's it. But yeah.
His cloak is self-deprecation, where he's talking about, he's got to study because he's not smart enough. We all know that's not true. Like,
I know.
But he's he's definitely like the best that you could hope for from somebody representing your country. Humble and high achieving, incredibly hard-working, and then also it turns out a great teammate. Because I think we were all concerned, like at various stages, that when the way the rowing weights all changed and the Olympics telescoped a little bit, that we were not going to be able to find someone at a similar level. And then obviously Fintan McCarthy replaced his brother, and Fintan seems to be driving him as well. Like we can't tell, right? Looking at the boat, what the crack is with the two of them. When you're watching the two of them, what do you see in terms of the quality of both of them and the difference between them, and how the gap might be closing even, or is the gap closing?
Yeah, there's no question about it. I think Fintan has made Paul his target in terms of that's the level that he wants to attain, Fintan. So the big improvement of the boat this year, and it's clear that it has come primarily through Fintan. So Fintan has clearly kicked on. He beat Paul in the Irish Champions. Now, Paul has had a very disruptive year, admittedly. So, but Paul is not at his best, and Fintan is really the person who has brought the boat to the next level, and it is at a new level now, with significantly less time and preparation in this European Championships than they've ever done before. So, all of Fintan's numbers are through the roof in the last year. I mean, those guys. Fintan is a lot smoother, and he backs up Paul in terms of the rhythm. And Paul is that gutsy racer, and gives you the confidence. I mean, to row behind Paul must be like trying to stay on it. Like, it must be terrifying, that kind of way, because he'll just go and go and go and go, and Fintan can go with him, and he's very good. There's no real big calls in the boat. He just knows. They know when they're moving. They know when they're moving, when they're pressing the other crews. So yeah, the story this year. I mean, we talk about Paul a lot, but the story this year really is Fintan and his improvement. So yeah. I mean, the two of them. I mean, it helped the fact that it was a long race the weekend. So it was 6.5 over 6.5 minutes, where it's normally about 6:10. 6 minutes 10 seconds, and that last 20 seconds helped them press on because they're such big engines. I mean, in that last 500, all the other crews were breathing through their ears and their fingernails, and these guys had oxygen tanks on, that kind of way, just kept piling on the pressure. And the last 50, that massive gap open that you saw, clear water. So yeah, but the story this year is in my mind is Fintan, and that's fantastic that they're now kind of competing at that same level, that they have that same parity of esteem, which I would hazard to say wasn't there in the past.
What's the depth like in men's rowing?
In the heavyweight men's?
Yeah, just considering there's so much competition in the...
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Yeah. Is there a similar level of competition behind them?
So clearly there's really only two people for that boat. There's really, unfortunately, Gary seems to be out of the picture. Gary O'Donnell seems to be out, which is heartbreaking. But that's that boat. And really there's the difficulty when you have two really, really dominant people. There's nobody coming. There's nobody even going to touch them. So they've kind of almost killed people coming through to that lightweight boat. In the heavyweight section, they seem to be having some problems this year in terms of they went from a silver medal, which is in 2019 they came on a silver medal in the double, Ronan and Phillip, and didn't perform in the Olympic Games. That was our first silver medal in heavyweight rowing since Sean Dre in 1970, 75, 76. So they seem to have not really stepped up. I know there's been COVID and various problems happening in that group, in the heavyweight group. But it's a concern that they haven't gone to the World Championship, to Europeans this year. I know they're all going into training camp now at the moment. There's a bunch of under 23 heavyweight men's rowers that are going to training camp. They are going to try put together a pair or a double or something to go to the World Championships. We definitely need a heavyweight men's boat at the World Championships. And there's actually a lot of people coming through on the heavyweight side, less on the lightweight side. And we'll wait and see what they can put together for the World Championships. But they really haven't backed up the result in 2019. Again, our first medals in 76 in heavyweight rowing. The hope is that they can find. I was talking to Ron Byrne before, and he's very, very disappointed that there was no crew going. But they need something to go for, or else that is going to fizzle. And they need to go to World Championships. That group needs some exposure at world level again, because if you don't, it will fade away, and people say, "Oh well, what's the point?" The money's going elsewhere, the time and effort is going elsewhere within the groups.
If Paul doesn't go to the World Championships, who do you think would fill his spot?
This one, I was talking to him. I said, "Like, Paul, what's the story? Like, are you going to go?" And I think he's going to go. I think that the thing that he'll probably, despite me, say, "Tueller, I'm not going," just because you said it on radio. But I think he's going to go. I mean, there's this thing that he doesn't, he probably doesn't know where his medals are. He probably doesn't know a lot of that. But the thing that he doesn't care about winning his 5th World Championship medal, I don't think. And to be honest, the gap between him and the other crews, they could do it relatively easily. If there is a time to take some time off, this is the time to take it off. There's no question about it. But I think he will go, if I'm honest. But it is Paul, so you never know. My Fintan will row the single, and they'll put out there is a good under 23 lightweight double that they will race. So Fintan will race the single, and they'll keep they'll definitely road it up. They won't put Fintan in with somebody else.
Okay,
that won't happen. But they'll race Fintan in the single, and it'd be great to see Fintan in the single. Maybe get a World Championship medal, which would really show that he's at that level. That improvement curve is real.
Yeah.
So the only way to really show that is really in the single.
Either way, there's loads of options. So Niall, if anybody wants to get in a boat fast, where should they go?
Just Google rowing clubs in Dublin. Go onto the Rowing Ireland site. Go into the Rowing Ireland site and look for your local club, and pop along, and they'd be more than welcome to have you. All ages, all groups. Or you could join my indoor rowing class, which is Crew Class. Follow me on Instagram, Crew Class Dublin, and you can learn to get fitter faster.
There you go.
Rowing way.
There you go. Good stuff, Niall. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
All right, cheers. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Always great to hear from Niall O'Toole, of course, Ireland's first world champion in rowing back in the day. It is a fairly special time for the sport. It was David Epstein who was over one time talking about his book, The Sports Gene, and he was talking about the predisposition of different cultures to different sports events and why certain. I was like, well, what could we be good at? He was like, rowing. That should be your thing, and that's
right,
just like probably a decade ago at this point. And we were already very good. Like we had world champions in Niall O'Toole, but he was like body composition, the propensity. It's like the number 7. We have a lot of very identical number 7s in rugby. We've always been great, who all look fairly similar in terms of body shape and size.
Yeah.
They would all have been very good rowers.
Yeah, that's true. Also, I guess,
Josh van der Fleer, great engine.
Yeah, he would have been a good rower. There's also like I mean, body composition, natural scenery of Ireland, the amount of rivers, and also Cork people, notoriously stubborn.
There's something in that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like, it's
By
the
the way,
it's the ends of the earth.
I didn't want to say this to Niall because he would have hung up immediately. Our producer Colm, who did the Cork Mount Rushmore at the start of COVID, says that Paul O'Donovan doesn't even make his Cork Mount Rushmore. So we were having conversations about Ireland's best sports person here. Colm says he's not even in Cork's top 4 Irish sports people ever.
It's 8:35 this morning. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We are going back to Vicar Street tomorrow. Michael Owen, Ian Wright, Emma Byrne and Karen Carney are going to be our guests. It's all in association with Cadbury FC. It's an exclusive off-air event. Tickets are limited, so don't delay. otbsports.com/events. We will see you on the night. Up next, we're looking through today's sports pages. Before that, here's football journalist Miguel Delaney on last night's show talking about the madness at Manchester United.
And the Rashford situation, like, that continues as well.
I mean, that goes back 2 years. Because remember, I wrote 2 years ago, Tuchel had a phone call with Rashford explaining to him exactly how he'd use him. And I think that's actually quite relevant to Rashford's current form in the sense that Rashford feels like a player who basically at a key development age of his career, because he broke through so young and then was kind of just continued being used in various roles, he was never honed in an actual position. He became, and I mean, look at the managers he was with. Mourinho, who, as great as he once was never really famous, or ever the attackers used to criticise his coaching of forwards, especially in the modern game, what people like Guardiola and Klopp do. And then Solskjaer, who basically just was, I mean, to a certain degree, coaching on kind of emotion. So basically, at the key formative age of Rashford's career, he didn't get any elite coaching. And so hence he's in his mid-20s now, and there are these big questions over what he actually is as a player.
There are so many idiots out there, so many spoofers. There's a lot of horse.
I think he's a total spoofer.
What do you mean a spoofer?
He's just bullshit.
No, Eamon, come on, don't be, no, I'm not having that, no.
Can't say that. Turns out you can. Nunez loses head and Reds lose 2 points. Record signing to miss United clash after a moment of madness as Diaz earns draw. It's all coming up Man United this morning. Is it?
When was the last time Liverpool and Manchester United played each other and both of them were in the bottom half of the table?
Don't know. Probably been a while. Luis Diaz starting to score goals would be a big moment.
Yeah.
Everybody was raving about him last year. As soon as he starts adding the goals, it's going to be great because he scored a load for Benfica.
Yeah. Like, I do think that's... I think he showed a pretty good goal. Like, he definitely was getting into good positions last season. The question is, I guess, what can the likes of Jota and Firmino offer when the season develops as well? That,
Porto, obviously. Sorry,
I'm
mistaking my...
I think it's obviously going to be a big factor, but I wouldn't be concerned about Luis Diaz at all. Not that anybody was. I think he looked excellent last season. And as I say, he should have scored in the first. He should have back-to-back games where he scored, and now it was just a bit of bad luck against Fulham.
All right, okay. John Duggan's on his way in. Let's play him in with his moment of glory. Have a look at this. John.
Will Zalatoris wins this week. So it is the FedEx St. Jude Invitational on the PGA Tour World Golf Championship event in Memphis. It starts tomorrow at about 1:15 Irish time. Will Zalatoris is 25-1 for 12 each way of virtual money, fifth of the odds for 8 places. It's quite remarkable. In 33% of his major starts, he's finished runner-up. Never won on the PGA Tour. But Will Zalatoris, I think, will love this course this week at Southwind. It's a fairways and greens course all the way. He was tied 8th on his first start in it last year. All of his rounds were in the 60s. To me, he just improves when he gets to bigger stages. And I think if he's going to make the breakthrough, this is the course he's going to make the breakthrough on. It's a tricky course. It's a par 70. It's got challenging rough, dog legs, water, Bermuda greens. It's going to be a test of approach play and tee to green play, and he's the top player on the tour in approach play. We know that those short putts can be a little bit of a nightmare for him, but he's got a tough streak. He sacked his caddy last Friday at halfway in the Wyndham Championship, so he's not afraid to make big decisions. I think he's mentally tough, and I think this is the week Will Zalatoris is going to break through at 25-1 in the FedEx St. Jude. So that's my headline tip this week.
That's not bad. That is not bad, John. What kind of a weekend did you have?
Good weekend. I didn't have any money on him personally, but 11.4% profit. You're going to have your quiet spells. You're going to have your dips throughout the year, but we've had 25 to 1 winner, 25 to 1 winner, 66 to 1 winner, 80 to 1 winner this year on Virtual Insanity. All I can say, look, it's high risk, it's high reward. You probably shouldn't be doing it, but it's better than Bank of Ireland, it's better than AIB. Ulster Bank's closing down, so not too bad at the moment.
Right. Do you feel pressure after a win like that, or is it just joy? Is it like...
You feel relief because you feel that, you're putting a lot of work into it, a huge amount of research, and you're hoping that it was an insane playoff as well. Absolutely insane. They both hit in the water in the third hole of the playoff, Sepp Straka and Will Zalatoris. But you're just trusting the process, as it were. The process is a lot around course form, it's a lot around recent form, and it's a lot around the fact, does the player have the Leroy G? And Will Zalatoris has it. He has that Leroy G, and I don't know if you saw that kind of meme that's going out there. It's what are they going to say now? He was shouting at the crowd. So you got something, Will Zalatoris. He's got a toughness to him, and you just got to stick to the process.
Right, great, well done.
Thank you.
Congrats, John.
Thanks, Son.
Were you on this one?
No,
we kind of gave up around February, March.
I started reinvesting in crypto.
Just at the right time. Buy the dip.
Yeah.
It's what is the she in NFTs? Is it kind of a Kerry thing or Kerry jersey?
It's just David Clifford's face. That's all it is. That NFT.
Well, that'd be a branding problem because obviously he owns those, right?
He does, yes. It's a true point. No, I need to get back on it, John. I did say at the start of the year I would die for Virtual Insanity.
Die for Ryan Brem as well.
Die for Ryan. I was trying to think.
Who I think has probably missed every single cut since he won that week. So
that's it. But look, we cashed in on RB.
No, I appreciate the nice words.
A few quick comments. Unapologetically blue, and the blue is all in capital, says Liverpool, just admit selling Mane was the biggest mistake you made and your midfield is rubbish. And Shifty Lad says Paul O'Donovan is very funny as well, saying he purposely airlocked the Italian just to let him know they're in a fight. Gas crack. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better ambassador for your sport than Paul O'Donovan. He's just winning friends and influencing people and bringing people with him. So, John, what else is going on?
Well, Liverpool last night, I think it's just really, really strange that we're not talking about intercounty GA at this time of the year. Like there's athletics going on in Munich and there's swimming as well in Rome. But like really it is just football. It's football and not going to be wall to wall. It's just a strange time of year where there's no real like rugby action and there's no GA action of consequence. I know there's club action going on, but like Liverpool last night, it's a 1-1 draw. It's a really good breakaway goal by Wilf Zaha. It's the madness of Darwin Núñez. It wasn't a timid headbutt, it was a proper headbutt that he deserved to go for.
It was the second one as well. It was like, I'm going to try and get you with the head, just see what happens, and didn't get him. So.
Yeah, and then a beautiful equaliser from Luis Diaz. So I would worry for Liverpool a little bit that they might be dipping a little bit. I just think they're a team that has been on the road quite a long time, and I think that you can even see with City already. There's a freshness to City with Haaland, and Haaland is just going to melt defenders' heads. You can just tell he's just going to melt everybody's heads, and that's going to create the opportunity for City then to use their other attacking players in the team. So from what I've seen from the first couple of weeks, I think City have started well. I think Arsenal have started very well, and Chelsea have started well. Like Spurs were completely outplayed and absolutely blessed to get away with that on Sunday.
I'm worried the league title race is over. Owen says not to worry, that there's actually going to be a period where they have their dip.
It's too soon. I think 2 games is just too small a sample size. Like I get the Manchester City point totally. I just have a little bit more confidence maybe in Liverpool than that.
Must be happy with Arsenal. Started very well.
You were chatting about this earlier, yeah. Very good start to the season.
Yeah.
Picked up where parts of last season left off. Obviously, the last week crumble still gives you alarm bells. So we'll see how they react to.
When do Arsenal get their dip? When the
fixtures get tough? Tottenham, start of October, isn't it? First fixture. Predicting October to be a grisly month. I presume Europa League will be up and running.
Good word.
At that stage grisly. As well. So that's when Arsenal are going to Arsenal. But for now, they're Manchester City.
Gary Neville, was it just Gary Neville, or did everybody do their green, amber and red of the major signings at Manchester United?
Did it kind of together.
Both of them, Gary and Jamie, so we don't know who
it's a good exercise, isn't it, really, when you think about it?
Do you agree that Zlatan and Bruno Fernandes were both good signings?
I think Bruno Fernandes was a great signing, but I think Ronaldo's arrival at Manchester United has destabilised Fernandes.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is Colin is like, yes, I agree outside as a Man United fan, but how great a signing can it be?
His goal rate was like 1 and 2, and now it's like less than 1 and 3.
So, like, how how great a signing is it if you're overawed by a teammate? If your game goes to pieces because a good teammate arrives, like, or is it just that the penalties were propping up his stats? I don't know. I can't get with the Bruno Fernandes is a good signing when his form has been abysmal through the moment of crisis. I would say Amber.
I would say Amber as well. I'd say he's an Amber signing.
To be fair, Neville did say that. Neville did kind of qualify it by saying you could make a case that he could be an Amber.
Stick him in Amber now, and then it's like one, it's Zlatan, and that's it. And like,
but just like Ronaldo has, to me, completely destabilised Manchester United. Every time I look at the Roy Keane era of Man U, there's Ronaldo's in the video. That's how long ago Ronaldo was at the club, and is obviously when he was the player that he was. But now, no. Like it was an embarrassing defeat at Brentford. Like it was just an absolute shambles.
Harry Maguire and Amber?
No, he's a red.
He's a red.
Totally.
Harry Maguire is red.
I know David Myler would disagree with us, and he made his points at Saturday's show. But the 24 players in that red column for Man United under
Fellaini, Mata, Rojo, Di Maria, Daley Blind, Memphis Depay, Schweinsteiger, Matteo Darmian, Schneiderlin, Martial, Bailey, Bailly, Mkhitaryan, Pogba, Lindelof, Lukaku, Alexis Sanchez, Diogo Dalot, Daniel James, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Donny van de Beek, Alex Telles, Ahmad, Jadon Sancho, Rafael Varane.
By the time you stop talking, it'll probably be 10:30. It's that bad.
What a squad that if you just put there, like, oh, this is a squad. Like, oh, that's an interesting squad, isn't it? Like, do I get everybody at their peak? Yeah, you get everybody at their peak. Apart from Schweinsteiger, obviously. They managed to... I mean, is Lukaku really in red when they got all the money back from him? I think... The Pogba signing is like, here, take all our money. We have too much of it. It's burning a hole in our pocket. It's interesting to watch what's going on at Man United. Like, it doesn't seem like we're anywhere close to a fix, John.
No. Ten Hag... I was reading about the struggles he had at Ajax at the start, and he weathered that storm. But I've always said that it's not just a football management job; it's an entertainment global brand thing.
Yeah, so you're the CEO of Disney.
Yes, so Ten Hag has got to have that gravitas. And when I look at Ten Hag, I'm just seeing coach is all I'm seeing with Ten Hag. And he's made some tactically strange decisions in his first two games, like playing Eriksen as a false nine in the first game and then as a defensive midfielder last week. And every time you hear him talk, like, it's all the players that he has previous associations with. Somebody put it out there on Twitter there yesterday, and it wasn't like, you can't just take Ajax and put it into Manchester. It doesn't work that way. And it's a club that has to be sold. And until it's sold, I think it'll be just a soap opera every week, and the Glazers just have to get out of. They have to go.
The one point about the Neville Redknapp TV debate, Neville made the point that what Spurs did in the background while they were refusing to spend money on the team was put together a world-class training ground and a world-class stadium and build the facilities and the architecture and the apparatus, so that then when the time came, they were investing on the framework of a business that was ready to go. Now, it might not have seemed that way at the time. Retrospectively, they might say that was always the plan. Who knows? Who knows, right? I'm sure they wanted it to work when Jose was there, and I'm sure they wanted it to work simultaneously to everything going on. However, it has started to work now. You're going to the game at the weekend? Oh, Colm's going to the game at the weekend.
Going to the
Sorry.
game. Yeah,
very good.
Yeah, he'll have a great experience. Our producer, Colin Boohig, as Owen will tell you, attest, it's a wonderful experience. I think Joe Lewis, who's the ultimate owner of Spurs, decided, we got to release the valve here. So for Spurs, everything is hard earned. So to get Daniel Levy to sign the cheque, it's hard earned. You have to make the case. They have to decide, we're going to give you 150 million. Whereas with United, with Everton, with those clubs, the money has just been profligacy, if that's the word. Like, it's been spent without any thinking. And that's the legacy of Man United now, is that the money's been spent without any thinking, and now you have this dysfunctional situation. So where Spurs, the money's been spent with thinking, now they'll obviously need to improve what they did on Sunday, because they were clearly second best to Chelsea. But you can even see with Chelsea, and Todd Bailey's obviously he's almost like he's supplanted himself in there, and he's the man, he's the guy being pictured in the cameras. But there's a degree of thinking about what Chelsea are trying to do. Now, they need to get a striker. But there's the absence of thinking at Manchester United over the last decade has been... there's a business case study in how not to run something.
Oh, those books are going to be great.
Yeah, like, you know, and Jonathan Orcroft has done some great articles about all that kind of thing.
Wilderness years.
You'd love to see the all or nothing for Man United right now. It would be absolutely compelling watch, because you'd wonder what was going on in that dressing room after that Brentford game.
Well, there was a row last week apparently, but I don't know how serious it was or if it was that important, because it didn't seem to be between first team players. But certainly all that stuff is coming out relentlessly again. Yeah, it's one of the leakiest dressing rooms in world sport. John, good stuff.
Lads.
Thanks a million. More from John Duggan, of course, on Saturday afternoon on Off the Ball on News Talk from 1 o'clock to 5. You can get it on OTB Sports Radio. You can get it on the Go Loud app as well. It's 8:50. If you want to get in touch with us, we'd love to hear from you. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. I'm delighted to say we're joined on the line now by Liverpool broadcaster Gareth Roberts. Gareth, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads. I'm a bit disappointed, I have to say. That's how I'm feeling.
Is the disappointment from the result exclusively, or are there aspects of the performance that are kind of making it a bit worse?
Yeah, both really. I mean, to start the season with only 2 points out of 6, with Man City, of course, having a flawless start, which they always seem to have. That's disappointing. I think we all were thinking it was going to be a out the traps kind of season after what happened last season. Obviously, we won the 2 cups, but disappointed not to get one of the big ones. And you kind of thought, well, bit between the teeth, here we go. I think the injuries have obviously influenced the situation. 10 players not available last night. But yeah, it's just not quite there at the moment for me. It's not quite clicking, and that's a little bit of a concern. You know, Núñez, I'm sure we're going to come on to talk about him and his daft actions last night. But, you know, he scored a couple of goals for us, but you can tell he's new to the side, and you can tell his teammates are still struggling really for an understanding. I'm sure that'll come as the season goes on, but you know, I'm looking at it currently and saying, well, you know, Mo Salah looks a bit blunted at the moment for some reason, albeit he looks creative, but he doesn't look like he's going to score. And obviously we want him in situations where he will score. Obviously we're missing Sadio Mane. So yeah, it's a little bit of a concern. I do think it's going to get a lot better when players come back, and I think we saw that last night. As soon as you see Joe Gomez and Henderson on the pitch, Liverpool look a lot better side, and so instantly we're all turning to each other in the stands and saying, well, why weren't those two in the lineup from the very start? But you know, Klopp explained later that with the pair of them, there'd been issues through the week, and they didn't trust them to play the 90 minutes, unfortunately.
What is holding Mo Salah back from exploding so far this season, do you think?
I just think the understanding's obviously different, isn't it? I mean, you know, you talk about Liverpool's front three for the last however many years, and there was a real understanding there. You know, you could throw a blanket over them at times in terms of how close they were to each other, in terms of how they played and how they linked up and things like that. You got Diaz, who's still relatively new to the side. Absolutely superb goal last night, by the way. You got Núñez, who's, you know, that's his home debut for him last night. So, you know, Salah's playing with different players all of a sudden. I think it's probably as simple as that. I don't feel like there's a huge issue there. If you're looking at his touch or the way he's taking players on at times, you know, he's there and he looks on it and he looks fit, he looks ready. He signed his new contract, of course. I just think the dynamics of the side have changed a little bit at the moment, not helped as well by the midfield situation. You know, the midfield is not the Liverpool's first choice midfield. It helps massively when Thiago's in the side. Unfortunately, you know, you look at his track record, it always seems to be that he plays 50 to 60% of a season rather than the whole season. We're seeing that again. He's obviously out with an injury again. But when he returns, I think you see a bit of a sea change again in how Liverpool play, how they link up, how many times you're getting the likes of Salah on the ball. But yeah, I think positionally they're just all struggling a little bit with the new personnel, the new system, and of course missing players as well. So it's just, when I said before, it's just not clicking. It's just not fluid at the moment for me. It's a bit of a struggle. But what I would say is, you're not seeing any issue there with attitude. You know, there's no hangover or anything like that, which I'm sure people will be writing about from last season. I don't think it's that. You saw the spirit last night at 10 men. We were absolutely brilliant with 10 men, and one of the things that I would question is why weren't we that good with 11 men?
The hangover question was actually, I was coming to that next. It's such a weird, unquantifiable, intangible thing to talk about. Like, a team suffers a great disappointment like you do in the Champions League final. It's not that the spirit is affected next year. Just like, it just takes a little bit to get the belief back, or maybe it's like your heart is broken and you have to climb from the very bottom of the mountain all the way back up to the top again, and that just takes a little while for everybody to remember or to tap into what it was that got them there in the first place. So I get the point you're making, that it doesn't look like there's a physical hangover, but sometimes there's just a little bit of a mental, I have to do this work again.
Yeah, I mean, and what one thing I would say about the vast majority of this group that we've still got playing for Liverpool is they've experienced that, of course. I mean, you know, missed out on the league title by a point last season. They've obviously done that once before when they got the 97 points. They've been beaten in a Champions League final before as well. And on those occasions, they've bounced back and won straight away the following season. And so when I said before that, we expected as fans to see the same. That's why, really. And, you look at I still call it the Charity Shield. I'm sticking with it. If you look at the Charity Shield performance and beating Man City there, I think we all still felt the same way. We were like, right, we're ready for the season. Let's go. Fulham was then disappointing, of course. Last night was disappointing, of course. And you could be right. There could be a little bit of a mental funk around the whole situation about how it ended, because to end with the 2 cups was brilliant still. And, I will always champion silverware, because you look at little kids' faces in that parade and, they weren't turning to each other and say, oh, these aren't the right cups. They just see cups and they see it wrapped in Liverpool red, and it's absolutely brilliant to see. But I think, of course, the actual players, the manager, they will have wanted the Champions League, they will have wanted the Premier League, and to come so close in both will have affected the mindset a little bit, I'm sure. It just needs to click for me. And, Sadio Mane is a miss. There's no two ways about that. I think, he scored more goals against Crystal Palace than anyone during his time at Liverpool. So, I'm sure Palace were glad that he wasn't on the pitch. And he was the type of player for me that when things aren't quite right, his sheer will sometimes could drag you through. He would score a goal from nowhere and off you would go. And we got that a little bit, I thought, last night from Diaz, of course, with that absolutely brilliant goal where he's taken 5 or 6 of them out of the equation and then putting it in the corner. I think there's more to come from him. There's been a bit of a debate about can he finish, can he score enough goals and that kind of thing. I think he's partly answered that last night with that goal, and I think we can expect more from him. I think he looks absolutely brilliant, and we're only he's gonna keep on going up trajectory wise, and I think we'll get more goals from him, and that will be a big help.
It does feel like it was a much better performance from Liverpool without the goal scoring. So it's not like they're playing really badly. I think they didn't play very well against Fulham, in all honesty, but actually they played much better last night and just didn't score.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I mean, it was utterly dominant in the first half, and you look at, even when you look back at the statistics from the game, I think there's like 24 shots from Liverpool and 10 of them were blocked. So that sort of tells you, the type of performance it was from Palace as well. There was a lot of last-ditch stuff, legs and bodies and stuff getting in the way of shots. Equally though, Liverpool's finishing wasn't quite what it should be. Núñez, before he's sent off, should have scored. Salah probably looks at one and says he should have scored. Carvalho had one as well when he came on. He should have scored. So there was plenty of chances there, really. I mean, I'm sure Palace will say the same as well. Of course, they hit the post. But, that breakaway goal in the first half, they hadn't been in on a half. That was their first shot. I mean, and it was a well-executed goal. Eze, I think it is, does brilliant, doesn't he? Plays the ball through. And then Zaha's away, and there's no way, Nat Phillips is winning a foot race with Zaha. He's away, he's timed the offside trap brilliantly, and it's a great finish right into the corner. But it did feel a real sucker punch, that, and it was, you were stood there thinking, is this one of those nights? And it kind of was, but, to at least get a point, I think that sort of saves the confidence a little bit, albeit that draws are no use to us, really. We all know that. I mentioned before 2 titles that we've came, or 2 title races where we've come so close when you started to analyse it again at the end of the season, you did, of course, look at draws and say, well, we should have won there, we should have been beating Brentford, whatever it might have been. And we don't want that situation to develop again. So for me now, it's an absolute must-win to go to Old Trafford and win, get a bit of momentum going. We've got Bournemouth, Newcastle and Everton, I think it is, after that. All games, I would say, are winnable. I know there's going to be plenty of talk about it being Man United. There'll be plenty of talk about it being Everton as well, like there always is, because those are emotional games. But, I would back Liverpool 100% to be able to get on a run, put this behind them and get the season going in earnest now.
Yeah. Are there any concerns about the depth of the squad when the injuries have hit as early as this? And we don't know what Harvey Elliott's going to be just yet. And James Milner's obviously at the end of his career. I'm one of Milner's biggest fans, so I totally understand why he's in the team, and he's totally reliable, and you know exactly what you're going to get. But if you're comparing the squad with City, for example, they have players who probably are at their peak, as opposed to either coming to a peak or bubbling up or over their peak at this stage. Is there any concerns around the midfield squad depth at the moment?
Yeah, I would say so. I think in the summer, there's obviously been a lot of debate. I think Liverpool were linked with players as well, which seems to have got a little bit forgotten in the debate. They did seem to be in for, I'm going to embarrass myself trying to pronounce his name, but Chouameni, are we calling him? I'm really bad at pronunciation. But the French lad who goes to Real Madrid, Liverpool was strongly linked with him. It did seem like they went in for him and he simply chose Madrid over Liverpool. I think what you've got is, I think there was players Liverpool wanted out, if I'm being honest with you. So I think they were looking to sell or move on. Chamberlain, I think there was even talk of Keita going at one point as well. And I think both of those players, if Liverpool had been able to shift them on, I think you maybe would have seen someone come in. Obviously now with the injuries, it's easy enough to say, well, they definitely should have brought someone else in. But we've seen already with the process, with this management, with these owners, with this coaching team, that they don't sort of settle for second best. They don't do the panic buying. They'll have a target. If they don't get the target, they'll keep the powder dry and they'll go for someone they really want, someone they think really improves the team. But I think the concerns over the midfield are absolutely fair enough. Thiago is absolutely world class for me. But, injury-wise, he does have a record which, like I said before, suggests that he will often only play 50 or 60% of a season. Milner, you mentioned, incredible fitness levels, but he's 36 years old and you don't expect him to be starting week in, week out. Henderson, I think, also in his 30s now, some question marks around him about what's his level on a regular basis now as well. And then Keita, Keita's fit, apparently. He was on the bench last night. So I would look at that and say, well, why is he not forced the manager's hand? Why is he not in the side last night? Is there a fitness issue, or is it simply that he's not playing well enough? He's been someone for me. There's a huge debate around him, there always is, but he's still one that's flattered to deceive at Liverpool for me. He came with the big price tag, the big reputation, and he's not done it regularly enough. And he's in his last year now at Liverpool. So if there's any time to pull his finger out, it should be now. You mentioned Elliott. I thought he was great last night. I thought he was really impressive. I thought he was really impressive last season before the injury at Leeds United. And the lad's got a big future in the game, and that's why they've recently given him a new contract. But what I would say when you were comparing sides is there's a lot of injuries. I mentioned before there was 10 players unavailable last night for one reason or another. And I just think any squad where you get that rash of injuries in one go, it will affect what you're seeing ultimately. And I think when players are returning, when players are a bit fitter, hopefully Liverpool will be okay. But yeah, I was one of the ones that was banging the drum to say we should be in for someone. Conversations with my friends, I was saying I do think we should be looking to upgrade in midfield. I think Liverpool tried, but I don't think they could get who they wanted this summer, unfortunately.
Was the Darwin Núñez red card a bit of a red flag by any chance?
I don't know. I mean, he's only been sent off once before in his career, hasn't he? So, and he didn't get sent off at all at Benfica. So I would say no. I think he was getting wound up. He was getting frustrated. I think you could see that on the pitch on the night in terms of his performance. There's a couple of chances there, including the one where he's at the woodwork, where you think, well, you probably should have scored. I think I remember seeing his arms flapping a little bit when Palace scored, which again said something about his mindset. And then I think he was a bit naive. I think most people would agree he was naive in that he allowed himself to get wound up. He gets a little push in the back. He'd already had a little sort of backwards header butt at the player earlier on before the incident that he actually gets sent off for. So it did look like ultimately his head had gone a little bit. I do think in general, like although he's influenced games, he's scored goals, he's assisted a goal, all the rest of it, I do think he's looked a bit nervous so far. And that's understandable. I mean, all players are different, all people are different. And I think he's gone from being, at Benfica, settled in a system, scoring goals, everyone raving about him, to now being at a very different level in a different dressing room. He looks to me like someone who's desperate to impress, desperate to get the adulation and show that he was worth his price tag on all of those things. So, Klopp talked about, didn't he, wants to have a sit down with him. He was leaving it last night, but he's going to sit down with him from now on in. And maybe some of that talk is about, like, you need to calm down a little bit here. You need to get your head right. I don't know whether it's a red flag in terms of that kind of thing happening again. We do, it's a bit of a stereotype, isn't it? But we do like the sort of Uruguayan spirit in general. And we talk about, when we watch their national side, about they get stuck in, they're a little bit aggressive. They combine that aggression with skill. And we love a bit of it. And obviously we had Suarez at Liverpool, and that was one of the attributes we loved about him as Liverpool fans. So it's just containing that and getting them to use that in the right way. I don't think I don't think you ever want to take that type of thing totally out of someone's game. Because I think it adds to someone's game. I can remember similar conversations about Wayne Rooney going way back when, and I can remember Ferguson saying he didn't want to take that out of his game because that aggression wins you the ball, wins your headers, puts you in places where if you didn't have it, you might not be. So for me, it's not too much a concern. It was daft. It was very daft. It was very stupid. I've got no complaints whatsoever. It's a definite red card. And yeah, he just fell into the trap from the defender there, and he hopefully learned from it.
Like, there's obviously that sort of that fire in Darwin Núñez is obviously something that Klopp's going to channel into something positive as the season goes on. There's no doubt about it. But I was just thinking when it did happen, I was like, when was the last time a player for Jurgen Klopp did get sent off for such a moment? Like, obviously there's been a couple of challenges here and there, a second yellow, professional foul, whatever it may be, but for something so daft, it felt like a very Liverpool under Klopp moment, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on. It's the first one for violent conduct under Klopp's reign.
Is it? Literally the first one? Wow.
Yeah, for violent conduct. And it's the first red card, I think, since Alisson against Brighton. I think I'm right in saying.
Andy Robertson, I think, in the 2-2 with Spurs was the only one since then, yeah. Yeah,
you're right. You're spot on. I was thinking about Anfield. But you're right to say that in general, Liverpool have always stayed the right side of the line under Klopp, and I think he's been big on that. I can remember a question a long time ago from a journalist where they talked about aggression and they talked about getting stuck in games and things like that. And he said then, early doors, that, while he wants them to run themselves into the ground and show their aggression that way in terms of the pressing, he wasn't a manager that was encouraging darker arts of the game, as we always call it. So, yeah, I would 100% say he's sitting down with him. He's having a big chat with him. He's saying, this isn't what we want. This isn't what we do. And there's been very few problem childs, full stop, at Liverpool since Klopp's been here. He doesn't seem to stand for it. It isn't something he wants. You go back to Mamadou Sakho, and the situation with him. He played up a little bit. Very soon he was out the door. And then, since then, I think it's in the recruitment. I don't want to repeat what he said just in case I'm not allowed to, but if you saw what Ryan Lowe said about his recruitment policy at Preston North End, he doesn't recruit certain types of people, shall we say. And I think Jurgen Klopp's got a similar policy. So, and any signs of doing something outside the box, something a bit different, something he doesn't want, I'm sure he'd be nipping that in the bud straight away.
I think it's the same as the All Blacks, is it?
No dickheads.
That's the one.
Yeah. There you go. Good question from one of our YouTube commenters, Powell74. Is it a bigger game for United or Liverpool next week? Liverpool win and Manchester United are bottom after 3 games. But if Manchester United win, then Liverpool will be below the worst Man United team in 50 years.
That's a very football fan thing to say, isn't it? And I totally get it. I mean, look, Man United, it's been awful for them, hasn't it? It's an awful start to the season. Questions about absolutely everything once again. And we all know that, beating Liverpool would be a huge stick and plaster over all of that. That would get them some huge credit in the bank. So, Liverpool have got to watch themselves in terms of that. But I would just say it's the same set of players. It's a different manager, but largely the same set of players. And, if the injuries clear up a little bit, I would be confident that we can go there and get a result. Perhaps not the result we got last season, which will still rank as one of the best things I've ever seen on a football pitch. But I would still be confident of us going there. And look, it's huge for both sides, I would say. I'm not one normally to jump on the tabloidies bandwagon and start saying, well, season over after 2 games or whatever. But I said right at the top to you that, dropping 4 points at this stage when you've lost 2 titles by a point, that is big. And we do know that, City can be almost flawless in a season. Will clock up ridiculous numbers. I've obviously spent a lot of money on a front man themselves who, no doubt he will click and you could perhaps say he hasn't quite yet, but, it's in the post. So that is quite a scary thought, and it does make the game huge for both sides. So it's hard to say who it's bigger for. I mean, the Liverpool are in crisis line would be absolutely everywhere if Liverpool go to Old Trafford and lose. 3 games in, only 2 points on the board. I think Liverpool know that that's not acceptable and that's not what they'll be after. And I think Klopp will get them in the right place. He's been really good, I think, in general, last few years of sort of taking all the emotion out of situations like this. And I'm sure he'll do that again. Whereas, the likes of us and fans who go to game and all the rest of it, we'll all ramp it up and we'll all argue with each other on social media. But I'm sure behind the scenes, they'll remain calm and they'll prepare in the normal way. And the normal way is a way that's, brought back 90-odd point seasons 3 times out of 4 in the last 4 seasons. So, Liverpool have been doing a lot right, and I don't expect them to fall off a cliff anytime soon.
Last question for you then. As a Liverpool fan, is this the most worried you've been about the collection of talent that City have over the years? Are you scared more about this team being the best City team that we've seen?
I think I've always had that about them because, the resources they've got, the manager they've got, I'd love, as much as it's almost horrible to say, but I'd love a season where De Bruyne isn't there week in, week out. I wouldn't wish injury on anyone, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's annoying how good he is and how consistent he is and how he drives that side on season after season. And it's even more annoying that he's a Liverpool fan. So, you look at the lineup, you look at their best team, and of course you're worried about it, and you're worried about their consistency, and you're worried about how much teams in this league can lay a glove on them at times. But there's always been little chinks in the armour, and for all that we're 4 points behind already, we were 14 behind at one point last season, and then we took it to the wire. So nothing's done, is it? And nothing's set in stone. And there's stuff there are still random aspects about football that I think keep us all interested. So, had Liverpool not been as good as they've been, City would have been running away with the title every year.
Yeah.
Liverpool have made it a competition. And there is still a randomness. Liverpool are experiencing randomness right now in terms of injuries, who gets the injuries, when they stack up, the time of the season that you play other sides and where they're at. There is a randomness still there. So I look at them and I worry because I respect them and they're talented and they're a great football team with a great manager. But equally, I always think there's a randomness about seasons, and all Liverpool have got to do is stay in there and make sure they're up there. And if City do slip, if there is a problem, Liverpool have got to be there ready to take advantage.
Gareth, this is the first time we've had you on in a while. If anybody wants to keep up to date with your latest output, where's the best place to get you these days?
I guess just on Twitter at the moment. So I'm Robbo Heighton on Twitter. I'm no longer involved with the Anfield app these days. And I'm taking a little bit of time out at the moment. So I was pleased to get the invite from yourselves. If anyone's out there looking for someone to talk about Liverpool, and just keep up with me on Twitter. Anything that I will be doing, I'll be posting on there. So that's probably the best place.
Well, enjoy the break. It's well earned, and whatever comes next, we're all very keen to see. And we wish you the very best of luck with it. Thanks a million for joining us today, Gareth. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's Gareth Roberts here giving some thoughts on the Liverpool situation. There is a fear. It's like justifiably so that the City machine has already clicked into overdrive. If they were to have 3 centre backs get injured, they're not stacked. If the 2 first choice fullbacks were to get injured, they're not stacked. They will find a way You know, they can take Rodri back at right back if they need to.
But that's the level of injury crisis they need.
Yeah.
They need a full-blown crisis to derail them, unless, like as he says, a De Bruyne or a Haaland goes down. I just think they're very specific players. Now, I know they won the first of their 2 in a row while De Bruyne was out for large parts of the season, but I think Gundogan was freakishly good during that time, and while he's still absolutely outstanding, he almost put the team on his back during a period when De Bruyne wasn't there. I still think that
Rodri has stepped up in the meantime, and so they could do
different
that.
player though,
Yeah, I know, but they could do it again, is what I'm saying. Obviously, but
Rodri has become.
Gundogan is a different player from De Bruyne, and
yeah, but he can do the advanced.
He can fill in a little bit.
Rodri has been
or
sensational.
Or drop Foden into midfield more, and like.
Yeah, that's or Grealish. And yeah, they've got stacks of options. That has always been the fear, though, hasn't it? The robot at the door, waiting to dominate and terminate all in front of them. And I think
now they've added the literal Terminator.
Yeah,
it's like 9:14 this morning. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Off the Ball is back in Vicar Street tomorrow night in association with Cadbury FC. It's a massive road show. Michael Owen, Ian Wright, Emma Byrne and Karen Carney are going to be our guests. There'll be brilliant stories in the night, obviously, and we'll obviously look forward to the rest of the season. It's an exclusive off-air event, and tickets are limited, so don't delay. Check out otbsports.com/events, and a reminder, ticket proceeds will go towards supporting Irish women's grassroots football. T's and C's apply. We'll see you on the night. Here's what we got on OTB Sports Radio today. At 1 o'clock, OTB Gold is Barry Ryan, The Ascent. There's a Dadcast at 3. Career retrospective is Patrice Evra at 4. OTB Gold is the life and times of Johnny Kilbane at 6. And then tonight, the show is live with Will O'Callaghan in the hot seat. You can follow Off the Ball across all our social channels, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and be sure to download the OTB Sports app for the very latest in sports audio. After the break, we're back with a young star of Irish show jumping, Max Wachman, of Tipperary, speaking ahead of the Dublin Horse Show, which starts this week at the RDS in Dublin. First, Pat Nevin joined Joe on the show last night and waxed lyrical about the brilliance of Rhys James. Have a look.
Is he centre back in a 3 in the making, or will he always ultimately be a wing back or right back?
Anything, doesn't matter.
Whatever he wants.
Really, absolutely doesn't matter. Play him on the left and he'll be fine there as well. It's now and again you get players over the years. And can you remember that period where Paul McGrath, and if somebody ran towards him and you thought, oh well, no problem there, because you're not going to get by, because no one ever does. And there's now and again players go through phases in their career, and it can sometimes be 3, 4, 5 years, and they're kind of unstoppable at a number of things to do. Rhys James is going, it's a period like that. It's horrible watching people come up against him, because the power's ridiculous, the pace is ridiculous, he's good technically in the ball, but he's almost dismissive. And I was talking about standing right by the dugout before the game, and Harry Kane came running past us just about half an hour before the start of the game. Yeah. And when you stand beside Kane, I hadn't realised really how big he is. Remember, he used to be a little bit puppy fat, but no, he is built now. He's seriously built, and he's about 6'3", whatever. But he looks great. Honestly, he just bounced off Rhys James time and again, and that's nothing against Harry. That's the fact that James was very, very special. But I think Chelsea, if they're going to do anything and stay in that top 4, get to that top 4 this season, they can't keep James there. They need to get another centre back in.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
OTB Sports, in association with Cadbury FC, are returning with a monster football roadshow. Coming your way August 17th.
Football legends Michael Owen.
If you haven't got that attitude, then you'll never survive.
Ian Wright.
Lots to look forward to.
Emma Byrne.
That's normal, that's all in the game. The level is gone through the roof.
And Karen Carney will be our guests at Vicar Street,
as they look back on their playing days and preview the new 2022-2023 season.
This is an exclusive off-air event, and tickets are limited, so don't delay. Go to otbsports.com/events.
And remember that the ticket proceeds will go towards supporting Irish women's grassroots football.
T's and C's apply. See you on the night.
If your business relies on a van, that wouldn't sound good. But this does. Get up to 75% off van insurance. Now available in FBD branches nationwide. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. 75% no claims discount based on 5 years claims free. Available on new van policies. Used for farm or business purposes. Terms and conditions apply. Underwritten by FBD Insurance plc. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, we're joined by Irish show jumper Max Wachman. Max, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Hi, good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. It's a big week for you. The Dublin Horse Show is on this weekend. What's your build-up to it like? How do you get ready for something like this?
Yeah, it's an exciting week ahead. I suppose you just ride the horses and make sure they're going well for it. That was kind of the build-up.
Is there much work to be done with the horse this week? I mean, obviously most of the hard work is done, but is it completely tapered down, or is there a bit of fitness work that happens during the week?
I suppose a lot of your hard work is done by the time you get here. Our horses arrived at the show in Dublin this morning, so it's just about getting them out and getting them relaxed and having them in a good mindset for the week, I think.
So they stay in Dublin for the week?
Yeah, they do.
Right, and what's your schedule like? How many different events are you competing in, and how many times will you have to ride?
The start of the week starts off quite busy with three events the first day and 2 the second. Then as the week goes on, it gets a bit quieter as kind of the bigger events start to happen. It gets quieter towards the end.
And when is the Aga Khan?
Friday evening.
Right, and so is the whole week kind of building up to that, really, from your perspective?
Yeah, that's the big event of the week. I think that's the most important. It's definitely the most important event, and yeah, big build up towards that.
Can you talk us, Max, a little bit through the last couple of years and trying to get to this stage in your own career? And I know obviously your own family is steeped in kind of not just equestrian but all equine sports. Can you talk us through a little bit about how you came into the sport of equestrian and how you got to this point?
I suppose I was always into horses. My family are quite heavily involved in the racing side of it, so I was naturally brought into horses that way. When I was younger, I started riding at a riding school in Tipperary and got the bug of show jumping, and I've been doing show jumping since I've been about 10 years old, and I love it.
Before you get into show jumping, what else were you doing with regards to the horses?
I suppose I was just riding around. My dad trained racehorses, so I was very interested in that at a young age. I used to go out with him in the mornings and watch the horses canter and gallop. And I'm still quite interested in the racing, but from the riding point of view, I'm much more interested in show jumping.
How vast are the differences, I should say, between being a jockey and racing, and then obviously from your own perspective in show jumping? I presume there are some subtle differences, but then there are some vast differences.
Yeah, I suppose it's very different. I suppose racing is done with the horses are at a much younger age, and they're kind of retiring or going to stud when a show jumper is starting. So that's kind of the main difference, I think, from the horse's perspective.
Without blowing your own trumpet here, at what point do you start to realise I'm pretty good at this?
Geez, I don't know. I don't know if I'm good now, but no, I'm just loving show jumping, and I'm enjoying it. So happy to be doing it.
Looking at Oisin Murphy, obviously away from racing at the moment, and turns out he's pretty good at show jumping too. Obviously the skills are relatively transferable. So when you were a kid riding out, was show jumping always in your head, or did you actually start out wanting to be a jockey?
No, when I was younger, I wanted to be a jockey. I was very interested in racing, actually, and when I was about 10 years old, I got into show jumping, and I haven't looked back.
It's obviously it's a business as well. Is this now going to be your life's work, like buying and selling and trying to breed show jumpers and train show jumpers? Is that how you continue to finance the rest of the operation to give you the time to compete as an international show jumper?
Yeah, I suppose show jumping, we're very lucky in show jumping, as obviously it's a sport, but it's a business at the same time. We're gradually getting into trading with some horses with Cian O'Connor, and that's very interesting. I suppose Coolmore show jumping, quite like Coolmore, is going to have to stand on its own 2 feet in years to come. So it's very interesting, and I'm very interested in the trading side of it.
And tell me a little bit about learning about what actually makes a good horse for show jumping versus what might be, what on the face of it might look like a good horse? How do you know which ones are going to be good and which ones aren't?
I suppose everyone looks for different things, and they look for different things to suit their own riding. I think scope, which is the easiness to cover the back rail, I think that's a very, very big thing. And I think for championships, you really need to have a scopy horse. Obviously, the horse needs to be sound as well, because the horse needs to be healthy. And ultimately, if the horse isn't healthy, he's not going to be able to compete at the highest level.
And then just in terms of the selection for the Aga Khan, as far as I understand it, there's a short list. You're on that short list. When do you just find out if you're actually competing, or if you are competing, when did you find out?
I suppose the 5 was named about 2 weeks ago. And Michael Blake, the chef keep, will make his decision closer to the Aga Khan to see who's on the team.
And what do you have to do in the meantime to try and give yourself the best opportunity to be part of that?
I suppose we'll all jump our horses here on Wednesday, and Michael will decide who's in the best form, and once he sees the horses jumping, what horses are jumping well, and he'll make his decision after that.
What about the relationship with the horse on the week of the event? Can you get a sense of how well they'll go, or otherwise a few days before the event?
Yeah, I hacked my horse out this morning. He just arrived here, so I just gave him a walk around the show, and he feels in great form. He's nice and relaxed, and he's not overfaced by it anyway. He's a very experienced horse, so hopefully he goes well this week.
What are you looking for this morning when you're trying to judge how relaxed he is?
This morning I just walked him around just to get him out of the stable for an hour. He'll get a bit of work then this evening. So no, very happy with the form he's in, I think, and hopefully it goes well.
And what's the rest of the year like after this, Max? What's the schedule like in terms of competition at an international level?
It's quiet for a couple of weeks after Dublin, and then we'll build back up and go to some more shows towards the end of the year.
Internationally, or I guess obviously internationally, but there must be some in Ireland as well. Is there a big kind of is your next step then to compete on a regular basis at international level?
Yeah, hopefully. I suppose we compete on an international level for the whole year. There's lots of international shows all around the world, and we try to attend as many as we can.
All right. Well, listen, we wish you the very best of luck. It's obviously a big week for you, Max. Best of luck, and hope it goes really well for you. Cheers.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
It's Max Wachman there, who's part of the shortlisted team for the Aga Khan this week at the Dublin Horse Show. You can get tickets. You can pre-book tickets at dublinhorseshow.com. It's obviously taking part from the 17th to the 21st of August. And I think you can rock up and get them at the box office at the RDS as well. Right, 26 minutes past 9. Some comments for me from a little bit earlier. Bobby Dwyer, a resident Spurs fan, poo-pooing the notion that the league race is over, of course. Premier League title race nowhere near over. The gap is only 2 points after Spurs draw with Chelsea at the weekend. Obviously 2 points dropped, not 4 points dropped by Liverpool, an irrelevance. Spurs fans, that's how far they've come. Also, after Nunes' short fuse last night, I can't wait for Romero marking when Spurs play Liverpool. Spurs fans are feeling themselves. It's going to be interesting to see who they are, what their character is, because they've been largely non-existent.
Yeah, it's kind of like what would happen to Mayo fans if they won in All-Ireland, isn't it? What would the transformation be like?
No, I think we know what they'd be like. I mean, you know what they would be like.
Yes, and I think I know what Spurs fans would be like as well.
I think Spurs fans would be I suppose it would mean something to you, whereas the rest would just be like, oh, that's interesting. But you're an Arsenal fan. Have you made your peace with the Mayo fans? It's important you make some, you make peace with people.
I guess it is, yeah, making peace with people is build bridges, don't break them down.
Yeah.
I was being
something you need to take care of.
Something I need to take care of.
Get your affairs in order.
Is building bridges, yes. Leave no stone unturned.
Yeah.
I've been getting tweets saying I'm going to go to the interviews on Saturday for the new Mayo manager.
Oh man, we should have sent you. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, no, they're happening.
You just
I'm not around this weekend.
You just taking photographs of the people going in and out, and they're like shocked faced that everybody's there. How did you know about this?
Yeah, I think I've been.
Do you know where they are?
I presume McKell Park.
Oh, just okay. So there will be people actually standing outside going, "How did it go?"
Yeah.
What do you think? Give yourself marks out of 10. Well, obviously I'm 10 out of 10, but my chances are about 5.
what it's going to be is that it's going to, because it's Mayo and because
So the interviews are this weekend?
I think so, yeah. Because it's been such a theatre so far, what you're going to have, they're going to like pull up in like a stretch limo and like Oisin McConville will like come out of it and it'll be like his, oh my God, it's Oisin McConville's music playing. And he'll be dressed like an NFL player before they go into the locker rooms.
That would be amazing.
And then their entire backroom team, and it's just like a clown car of like consistent selectors coming out behind Ray Dempsey, and that'll be his team. And then they do their like post-interview interview with the mass media, the international media, descend on McHale Park. And we can turn this thing and just pack McHale Park out. Do them on the pitch.
Maybe it could be like at a squash court behind the glass where we can actually like press ourselves up against the glass and watch the interviews.
Yeah, that would be good, soundproof. Or we could just do like an apprentice style boardroom interview and just dramatise it. The three people being chairman of the Mayo County Board, James Horan, and David Brady.
That would be good.
And
that would be interesting.
Yeah. I guess so. That will be keeping.
DB hasn't been grandfathered onto any of those.
No. Missing a trick.
Or biding his time. You want to be the man after the man, don't you?
Yeah, I guess that's probably true as well. Yeah, I'm sure he's got a current coaching job somewhere, doesn't he?
At club level, I think. Yeah. Israel Olatunde is racing at 7:15 p.m. tonight in the semi-finals of the European Championships, and it's worth taking a look at that tonight. We will be back tomorrow at 7:30 with the latest episode of You Had to Be There. It's our first foray into the world of GAA alongside Tipperary hurling legend Pádraig Maher. We'll have Deal or No Deal with Phil Egan as the transfer window reaches business time, and we have plenty more besides. Right now, following our chat earlier about Cork's updated Mount Rushmore, which hasn't been updated because Colin can't update it, has decided that Paul Donovan's not on it. That was his decision, and he's standing by that as it stands. Here is Sligo's not so contentious version. Enjoy, and we'll see you tomorrow.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.